guys, for my April 20th DVD update, where I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Just wanted to say thanks again for everyone who's been giving the videos thumbs up and likes and putting a comment underneath. Like I said, I always try and get back to every single comment underneath the video, so definitely give the video a thumbs up and a like if you like what I'm doing here. But anyway, though, the first title I got is Gangster Squad from Warner Brothers. Now, this one is a movie that I heard some kind of mixed things about. After watching it, I don't know why people, there were some people that didn't like it. I actually thought this was a really pretty cool one. Like, I didn't know going into it if it was going to kind of be like Dick Tracy, that kind of, because Sean Penn's character kind of seemed like Al Pacino's character in Dick Tracy, because they were kind of like a similar idea about, in Dick Tracy, Al Pacino's character was like the head of this group, and like he was taking over the city. And this movie was the same kind of a thing, but done like real graphic and real, R-rated and things like that. And it's Sean Penn. Like, Sean Penn in this movie really did a great job. Like, I thought he was great in this, but it's about him kind of running this kind of mafia underworld in LA, but he's like out in the limelight, and he has all these things that he runs, like prostitution things, a casino, and all these things. And Josh Brolin's character, he is a cop and kind of gets the okay from Nick Nolte to do anything possible to bring down, Sean Penn's character's operation. So he gets together a team of other cops from different divisions and things like that to, do wiretapping and, do robbing and like rob the casinos and things like that. And, all these kind of things that happen along the way. But it's them basically trying to bring down the operation and like ruin everything for him. And, get him actually catch him and put him in jail. And, Emma Stone is in this movie as well, and same with Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling plays the character that, Emma Stone's character is sort of dating Sean Penn's character, and Ryan Gosling's a cop as well. He did a very good job. He had an interesting kind of voice he was doing this, though. He was kind of like, well, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like was sort of an unexpected voice that he was doing. But I don't know. Overall, I thought this was really good, and there was just some really interesting things in this. And, like I said, a real violent kind of, like, much more than I thought. I was interested, though, it didn't have the stuff that they changed, which I totally understood why. Because of the movie theater shooting, there was a movie theater shooting in this movie, but I don't, that they cut out and refilmed. I don't know if anyone knows where in the movie that took place originally, but you couldn't tell, like, because I know they had reshot a big bulk of that scene and put a new thing in. But anyway, though, I would definitely recommend this one. Has a documentary on here on a real-life gangster and a whole bunch of deleted scenes on there and a commentary. This is just a really like this one a lot more than I thought I would. Definitely recommend it. The next one I got from Anchor Bay is Django Unchained. This is one of the ones that I would say is like one of my top favorite movies of 2012. It's also one of those movies, too, that, is really long. It's like over 2.5 hours, but flies by. And that the movie has really good storytelling and pacing when a movie can be that long and doesn't feel like it was any more than an hour. I mean, it really immerses you in the film, and those are the kind of movies that I love. It's those ones where you're not sitting there going, there's some movies like that. This one, like I said, was a really long one and didn't have that feeling to me at all. And it's about Christopher Waltz, who's this bounty hunter, who's like a top bounty hunter going around and like either collecting people dead or alive and collecting the money for it. He ends up trying to find these certain people in the film and ends up having the help of a slave played by Jamie Foxx. And Jamie Foxx, his wife, was taken to a plantation, and Christopher Waltz's character is basically saying that, if you help me find these characters, find these people that I'm looking for, because he has been to these different plantations, if you help me find these people, I'm going to give you your freedom. And it ends up being, them kind of working together and also trying to find his wife, and it's just this big adventure. And, it's also one of those kind of revenge films, and you kind of know I'm not going to say what happens, but it's one of those movies where you're really rooting for Django, and it's almost like a great form of what you wish could have happened to these people, these horrible people back then, with what Django and Christoph Waltz character are doing. It's just taking them out, and I don't know. It's just a very fulfilling, alternate reality of what you kind of wish they could have actually done back then. But really like this, it has that, signature Quentin Tarantino vibe of that real kind of 70s grindhouse kind of style with his music and his camera shots, and he always does those zoom-ins and things like that. I don't know, this is just definitely one that I would totally recommend. I thought Leonardo DiCaprio, I really think, he played one of the plantation owners, and I think he definitely this is, in my opinion, his best performance. And, for a long time, people always would, see him kind of as, I don't know, they never always, took him fully seriously for a couple of years later. I know after Titanic, he tried to do, The Beach and things like that, which I really liked. This one, though, is, I think one of his best performances. He really did an amazing job. Same with Samuel L. Jackson. There's one sequence in this that something happens to a character. Samuel L. Jackson just sort of starts to cry immediately. And I don't know, I just love Samuel L. Jackson in this. Definitely check this one out. This one's absolutely a must-watch, must-buy. I love this one. And the next one I got from Edgar Bay is Silver Linings Playbook. This movie was up for Best Picture. Django was as well. I did forget to say that. And Jennifer Lawrence also won for Best Actress with this film, which I thought she did a very good job. She actually kind of slightly outshines Bradley Cooper, who did a really good job. I think this is one of his best performances. But Jennifer, Lawrence was just so good in this. And the movie's about Bradley Cooper, and something had happened with his wife. His wife was, he caught his wife cheating on him. Don't want to go into the whole detail, but something happens, and he ends up being put into psychiatric care for a number of months. When he gets out, his wife has moved away. He has this hope of getting back with her, but, the courts have, a thing in place where he can't see her and can't call her, can't talk to her, or he could get in trouble and have to go back. So he's just kind of trying to do anything he can. He's trying to work on himself and everything, but he ends up moving back in with his parents, played by Robert De Niro, and his mother, I forget who his mother was played by, Jackie Weaver, and Robert De Niro did an outstanding job in this. I think this is one of his best performances in a really long time. I mean, I always love Robert De Niro, but this is, because there's been some movies he's been in the past couple of years, and you're kind of like, what is he doing in this? He's so much better than this, and this was one, such a great performance for him. And, he, sometimes people say when he does, crying scenes, it always kind of seems like he's laughing a little bit, or comes across kind of, silly. In this one, he did a great job. But he ends up, Bradley Cooper's character goes over to a friend's house for dinner, and ends up, meeting Jennifer Lawrence's character, because, she's the sister of the friend's, wife. And she's got kind of all these problems as well, and they kind of end up having this kind of love-hate relationship together, and, they're kind of screwing around with each other, but they end up kind of helping each other along the way, and some of the things that they do, and there's a task together that they're both, that he's helping her with, because he kind of knows that she knows his wife and has contact with his wife, so he's got kind of motives there. Don't want to say too much more in the movie, but really love this one. It was a very great story. Just would definitely check this one out. Bunch of features on here, deleted scenes, and a whole bunch of different stuff on here, but definitely check this one out. The next one from Edgar Bay as well is Pawn. This has a pretty good cast in this. Michael Chiklis is in this, doing this kind of British accent, which when you first hear it, you're kind of thrown by it, because it kind of sounds a little bit like Bob Hoskins, because it's that kind of British accent. It was almost like they wanted to get Bob Hoskins, but he couldn't do it or something, so he was kind of doing a Bob Hoskins kind of thing. But like I said, you're going to get kind of thrown by it, because you would never expect that. Kind of like when you saw him in, if anyone watched High School, he was so different, but so good in that. But this is a movie about this kind of planned robbery that kind of has kind of police involvement, and there's motive behind it, and there's all kinds of weird things, but there's planned robbery of this diner because they have something in the safe that they want that kind of deals with the mob and things like that. So it kind of shows it from different perspectives. Shows from the one perspective of the one guy, and I don't know, it was an interesting one. there's not a whole lot to say. I mean, it's kind of like one of those ones with like police situations and them saying, you know, what are your demands and all that kind of stuff. Kind of like, you know, the scenes in Airheads and things like that. You know, nothing like Airheads, but that kind of stuff. Like, well, what do you want? What do you want? What's your demands? Well, we want this and want that. So it's one of those kind of things that becomes that kind of a situation that should have just been a robbery with the plan of getting a certain thing as well from the safe. Basically, somebody, you know, that hires these guys to do this wants something from the safe, but then you know, they get to keep what they find there. But not too much to say, but, you know, Michael Chiklis is in this, and Ray Liotta, and Forrest Whitaker has a little part in this. But I thought this was a pretty good, like, kind of robbery, kind of, you know, one of those kind of films. The next one I got from Disney Nature is Wings of Life. This is one of their nature documentaries. And this one was a really interesting one because it was all about, like, the things that kind of pollinate and kind of keep the flowers and all the kind of things alive, like the bees, you know, pollinating the flowers, and like because of the kind of like cameras now with the macrovisions and these like little cameras they can put inside of things, they can actually show how these things are doing it in this great detail. Like I remember watching these kind of documentaries on the same type of things as a kid in school, and they couldn't get in on things. It was always kind of like kind of close, but never inside the flowers. And there was some interesting stuff in here too that I had never heard of about like these bats that like that come all this way to the desert with cactus and like do something with the, you know, I don't know all the details about, I don't remember exactly how they did it, but something about like making the things grow, like, and they're making these fruit on the cactuses they eat, and like just these beautiful images of things like that. I don't know, I just really love these kind of things, and just the way that they can do these now, and the kind of details that they can get is just, and I've talked about this a lot lately. It's just really amazing. Really love this one. The next one from Millennium Films, and this one I watched with Dweebo, and really thought this was a pretty good one. It was called Crush, and it's one of those kind of movies about, you know, a girl that becomes like obsessed, but it opens up in the beginning with this when the girl was a kid, with this boy on the roof, and she's like, or he said something and like, you liked the wrong girl, and pushes him off the roof. It's kind of like The Good Son, only the good son, you know, grabbed Elijah Wood and didn't let him fall. Well, she let him fall, and that, you know, I'm not ruining anything. That was the opening scene of the movie. But then it goes, you know, years later, and it goes to a character that's, you know, really likes this guy and is sending him notes and kind of like sort of stalking him. And, you know, that kind of just really likes this guy. And it's one of those kind of things where she's like screwing things up for him and, you know, kind of putting things in his locker, and like creepy things are going on, and like she's sneaking around in his house, and I don't know, this is just a very creepy, weird kind of thing, and I thought the actors in this were really pretty good. I don't know, and the one guy, I think was, like, I didn't even know it was him, was in, like, remember he was in Laid to Rest and things like that, but I don't know, this was just one of those kind of really good, kind of creepy, a girl obsessed with guy kind of movie where she's sneaking around and kind of causing all these kind of problems, sort of like a single white female, but like, but even though it's more of like a teen film, I thought it kind of was, I don't know, I just thought it was really well done. Would definitely recommend checking this out. And yeah, and the guy too, like, had this sports injury because like he had hurt his knee, so the whole time he's like running around on it still, so they're going like, you're gonna screw your leg up. And, I don't know, he just keeps running around on his leg. The next ones I got from CBS Paramount, and these are really cool. It's Star Trek: The Next Generation, and this is the 3rd season of the show. And, you know, as I said before, like in the last volume, I think it was a different company that did the special effects, you know, because if you don't know with these, with the show, they had to go in and totally recut the entire show to remaster this, because when the show was originally edited, it was all edited on, like VHS tapes. That was like the final cut, went on like beta tapes, which didn't, the picture quality was not HD. So they had to go in there into the vault, find all the original negatives and recut everything, and they had to go there and redo all the special effects. You know, like they used all the same models, but a couple times they would have to, if it was like a CGI kind of effect, they had to go in there and redo it, but they actually match it to the same kind of CGI that they had back then, so it doesn't look like new. But like the show itself, though, with the picture quality, looks like this was something that was shot yesterday because it was on film. It actually looks better than a lot of things now because the fact it was on film. Most TV now is just shot. I don't think there's any TV shows that they shoot on film. It's pretty much all digital. And the thing with film, you know, when you really do look at it and you compare like some horror movies and things like this, that's just stuff that was shot on it compared to stuff now, it really does have a better look, you know. And I don't know, you kind of miss it a little bit that not more things are on it anymore. But this has a documentary on here on the writer's room, and it has Seth MacFarlane talking to the writer's staff, and it has a gag reel and commentaries on some of the episodes. But this is just a really fun show. If you don't, you know, this is one I would definitely make an upgrade to if you don't have, you know, I would definitely, if you love the show, because, you know, when you look at the old DVDs of this, it was, you know, just taken from the original tapes. It's not HD. And I also got from the Star Trek Next Generation is the Best of Both Worlds, which is the double part episode, which is, you know, the one episode from season 3, and then season 4 cut together into like a full movie. And it's about, you know, the Borg ship, what's coming, which is like the big ship with, you know, and then taking Picard captive. This is just a great one. The thing I really loved on this was it has a gag reel from the episode, so it's about 5 minutes, and there's some really funny stuff on it. Like, it's kind of funny. You could see how hard of it they were having saying some of the words and stuff, because, you know, there's always kind of like weird phrases in the show. You always kind of wonder like if they could like say that, you know, without messing it up. And there's some funny, like, you know, weird outtakes and stuff. I don't know. It was that I really enjoyed, and it opens up like this. If you were wondering, so, you know, he's normal and then the Borg, but this is definitely one that I would recommend checking out. And the next one I got from Echo Bridge, and this is one I really love. It's called Fortress. This is a Stuart Gordon film. Looks really good in HD. You know, it was only ever available in full screen on the old Artisan DVD. This is about in a futuristic world where if you have more than one kid, you end up going to jail. It's kind of like they have controlled population, and Christopher Lambert's character and his wife end up he ends up getting put in jail, and his wife gets away, but she ends up, you know, getting there as well. So it ends up being a kind of, you know, him trying to get out of there. You know, he kind of was going to put up with it when it was just him, but when his wife is there, he's like, he's got to get out of there. And this world has like really cool kind of jail setting. The sequel to it kind of, you know, failed on that level of, you know, having this really cool like jail setting, and there's like a kind of like a robot thing that goes around and can kind of see into your mind. So if you're having like unauthorized dreams and stuff, it can shock you. It basically has a thing inside of you where, like an implant, where if you don't do, you know, what you're supposed to, it shocks you, and if you go over the red line, you know, basically you're gonna blow up, your stomach will blow up. But this is just a great futuristic, like this is one I would definitely recommend. The next one, this is one that I remember from middle school. Like, really, really remember this. Like, I think it was like the last year of middle school when this came out. It was like it was kind of like reminding me of the time when like things like urban legends were coming out and these kind of movies. This was kind of from Kevin Williamson, you know, the writer of the Scream films. And this is a PG-13. I kind of wish it was rated R. I always sort of did. But it's Teaching Mrs. Tingle, and it has Helen Mirren in it. It's one of those kind of movies where it's like, how the hell did they get her to do this? You know, I don't know how they got her to sign on to do this. And it's Katie Holmes in it. And it's about, you know, these kids that are kind of being sort of messed around with by Mrs. Tingle, the teacher. And she kind of, you know, Katie Holmes is hoping to get this really good grade on her assignment. She put all this work into this book, and Mrs. Tingle, you know, is kind of not impressed with it. And she, you know, Katie Holmes knows that if she doesn't get a good grade on this thing, that, you know, then she's not going to get this valedictorian thing. But later the day in the school, you know, the one friend brings these test scores, and Mrs. Tingle sees them, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to tell you know the principal tomorrow on all of you." So they all go over to her house and try to talk with her, but it ends up going wrong, and they end up tying her up, and it's one of those kind of things like that. It's not like violent or anything like that, but it's kind of like them like talking to Mrs. Tingle, like, "Well, you're," and she's like, "You're going to be in a lot of trouble." It's like that kind of thing. There's not too much to say about it. I mean, it's not a perfect movie, but it's kind of like a fun movie. But like I said, there's not too much to say. The next one, this is one I had never seen. Before. I might have seen some, the cover to it before, but it's the movie with Jamie Lee Curtis called Mother's Boys. You know, it's kind of made me think of this one movie. If anybody remembers this, it was like, I don't know when it came out, like in the early 80s. I mean, the late 80s or early 90s, about this mom and this kid that I think he had like special needs or something, and she married the husband and took the kid out to swim, and he drowned. If anybody remembers that, it made me think of that again. It's this movie that I've always been trying to remember the name of for years, and this movie kind of made me think of that again. And as I was watching, I was like, wait a minute, could this be it? And I'm like, no, it wasn't. But the movie's about Jamie Lee Curtis's character, and she basically abandoned her family 3 years ago, and she's come back. And she did this before to the family, but the husband now has moved on. The kids are pretty much like, "Oh, your mother doesn't like us anymore. She doesn't care about us because she doesn't call them. She just disappeared off the face of the earth for 3 years." But she's come back and wants the family to be together again, wants to be back with the husband. But the husband now has a new girlfriend, and it's like this whole thing of her trying to get back with the kids and getting the kids to care about her again. But the kids are already kind of, don't really care anymore because it's like she's abandoned them. So it's this thing with Jamie Lee Curtis going crazier and crazier. And it's a little different than, I've seen her in other movies. This one I would definitely check out. And the next one from Echo Bridge as well. This is the Kevin Smith movie that, he's always kind of said, people kind of made jokes about it, like, "Oh yeah, it was better than Jersey Girl." I always thought this was a sweet movie. I thought George Carlin was great in this movie, and it was about Ben Affleck, and the movie and his wife passed away, and he's like kind of trying to get his life together, and thinks he's never going to meet anyone else, and ends up meeting Liv Tyler. And the thing is, Liv Tyler's character, I think the movie kind of had a curse behind it, because it was around the time when it was that whole Geely thing, and that Bennifer thing, and Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, and kind of like that time when they were doing these movies together, and people were kind of having all kinds of a to-do about it. So I don't know. I actually liked this. I thought it had really good writing. I think his best movie, though, was Chasing Amy. And I know he's doing another Clerks 3, so I'm really interested in seeing that. Hopefully it doesn't take a really long time for him to do that. But I actually would love to have seen in like a Mallrats 2 or a Chasing Amy 2, a follow-up to that, which I would love to see that followed up. But I don't know, I always liked this one. I never understood why there was so much negativity around it, because it had really good writing. The next one from Well Go USA is Not Suitable for Children. It's an Australian film. I believe the guy from it is the star of True Blood. I never saw that show. It's one that I need to watch. But he's a guy who ends up finding out that he has testicular cancer, and he's going to be going in for the surgery, and they're going to be able to treat it. But because of the radiation, things like that, he's going to be rendered infertile. And giving sperm and things like that don't work. The specimens don't work. They think the only way that he would ever be able to have children in the future is if he actually got someone pregnant now. And it's kind of him, somebody that didn't really think he'd ever want kids, kind of changing his tune and trying to find someone that would have kids with him. So he's like calling up everybody he knows, like, "Would you be willing to have a kid with me?" And just kind of like a whole big thing about him. And he's the kind of guy, too, that kind of likes to party with his friends. And, this is like, having a kid is not something he would think that he would have wanted now. But because of what's going on, he really rethinks his life and starts making changes. I don't know, I just thought this was a really well done comedy about kind of a sensitive subject, kind of made a little lighthearted, and I don't know, I really liked it. I just liked this one a lot. And the next one I got from the Kino Redemption line, and this one I really liked. It's another Gene Roland film, and it's Night of the Hunted. This one was probably one of my favorites of his, next to Fascination. I know this one has gotten some kind of weird reviews when I was looking it up, but I don't know, I really like this. It's a weird, I could see this movie remade as like a Hollywood type thing. It's about this woman, you know, with her friend. That, you know, these two women end up escaping from this kind of, you know, basically this guy's out in the driving through like a wooded road, ends up seeing this woman running to her, you know, who needs help, and the woman has this kind of disorder where the friend ends up getting lost, but so it's just her, but she has this kind of disorder where she forgets things immediately. So like if she doesn't, like she gets in the car and forgets why she was running, and it turns out she's from this clinic, whereas everybody in this place has memory loss, and kind of if they stay with the person they can kind of remember, but it's like this weird stuff going on. There's all kinds of reasonings behind it, but she ends up getting found by the people from the clinic and taken back. But the guy she meets, she ends up like really liking him and getting his phone number, and it's kind of her in this clinic, you know, forgetting everything. So like I said, she keeps forgetting things, and all the people in the clinic are all kind of forgetting things and kind of like brain dead, and it was just really creepy and like weird, and there's some cool synth in it, and like there's like murders going on and these weird like big buildings that takes place, and it's just a weird kind of out there movie. And the next one from Redemption as well is Grapes of Death. And I think people have said this is one of Gene Roland's highest budgeted films. And there's some really cool sequences in this, like the effects in this one. It's like these blowing, like things on faces that like boils and things like that. It's like crazy effects in this, but it's like about this plant where, you know, a winery where they're spraying these chemicals in the wine, and the wine ends up kind of infecting this whole town of people and turning them into these zombies and things like that. These crazy, like violent, you know, zombies. And this woman's on a train to go to the area, and one of these kind of people gets on there. I was kind of always kind of confused though, because I guess the guy, like, you know, where exactly the setting of where it was, you know, because she's like going on this train, but this guy with the boil on his face is, you know, so she ends up getting off and scared of this guy, and, you know, goes to this town and tries to stay with this guy, this guy with his daughter, and the guy's crazy, and like she's basically just sort of trying to survive and getting through this town with all these people and the blind women. It's one of those kind of movies though, really tough to explain. It's just a whole lot of things happening, but it's a creepy, weird one. I really like this. Made me think of another one with a scene when someone gets dropped in this thing of salt. And I couldn't remember the name of that one either. I hate when you watch a movie and then you kind of remember another one. But like this one, the one though, was actually one of the first Gene Roland movies I ever watched. I think in 2003, when the old Synapse DVD came out. The next one I got from Kino's Horizon line is Jacob. And I have heard about this one a long time because I talked to Paris Randall, who's in this movie, online, and I thought this was a pretty cool movie. It's a little bit different than I thought it was going to be. Michael Biehn is in it. He's not, credited on the top because I think it was kind of like an uncredited cameo. Like they couldn't use it in promotional because it was like he did it more just for fun. But the movie's about this kind of guy. It's like it starts with this kid going to this with his friends to this old kind of like abandoned looking house, and a cop ends up coming there and going, "Well, I'm going to tell you what happened here." And he's kind of telling the story of Jacob, who's this guy who was kind of, with his mother and this kind of like abusive, I think he was a stepfather, and kind of what led him to do all these bad things. And it kind of reminded me like a bit of like sort of Sling Blade a little bit with what was going on. It's nothing like it, but kind of like the same kind of thing. I wish a little bit that Jacob was a little bit more creepy. Like that was the only thing I thought. Like the last 30 minutes of the movie was my favorite, like when all the kind of bad things really started happening. James Hampton has a little cameo in it, and that was like really cool to see. He was in the original Teen Wolf and hasn't done too many movies in a long time, so it was very cool to see him in it. And like I said, Michael Biehn has a little part in it, and same with his wife, Jennifer Blanc Biehn. But this was a cool kind of like killer movie, but a little bit hard to explain some of it. But like I said, I thought it was good. I just kind of thought he just wasn't as creepy as I thought for some reason. The next one I got from Lionsgate is a Quentin Tarantino's Rolling Thunder's Pictures presents. And this is 3 different movies. It's on The Mighty Perking Man, Detroit 900, and The Switchblade Sisters. Switchblade Sisters is like the all-time classic girl gang movie. I think there was a lot of other... I don't know if they made sequels to it or not. There was a lot of movies kind of similar to that in the same time that came out. These are all kind of grindhouse exploitation films. And they all kind of are movies you can tell. That's why he put his name on the collection of the movies, because it's the kind of stuff... It is definitely the stuff that has inspired his movies, like the zooming ins and the things like that. Switchblade Sister, though, is a kind of a girl gang that, has this group of these guys they work with, but it's like a rival gang. So it's one of those kind of movies. And the one person in it, I always think of this. I can't remember who it is, but it's the one that did the voice of the Chipettes in Alvin the Chipmunks. I always thought it was so funny she was in that. And the Chipmunks was a real kids thing. And because she hadn't done a whole lot of acting, I believe, and I always remembered that. And The Mighty Perking Man, and it was a Asian film, but I think it might have been like a joint production, because I think it had Americans in it, or it might have been people from Europe. I couldn't tell, but it's this movie about this giant it's almost like a King Kong. If you mix King Kong with the style of the Godzilla movies, King Kong destroying the city, but with all these models and things like that. It was a really fun movie. I had a really fun time watching it, but they go, a group of these explorers go to get the King Kong and monkey kind of thing and bring it back, and the guy ends up getting separated from the group, and everyone else gets killed. And there's these crazy leopard fight scenes with people I've never seen somebody doing before, fighting these leopards. But the guy ends up getting separated, and everyone else dies or goes, gets away. He ends up finding this woman out there who, her family crashed there years before, and it's him with her and them kind of, seeing each other, and you know what's going on, I'm saying. But then they end up getting away and bringing, I'm not going to say what happens, but it's, like I said, it's very much like King Kong, done like a cheesy Godzilla, because Godzilla, but done with the, less the budget, done way cheesier. And I don't know, it was just a really fun one. The next one from Arc Entertainment, and this one I really enjoyed, and it's Family Weekend. And it's about this girl whose family is kind of neglecting her. It's kind of like, 16 Candles, can't believe you forgot my fucking birthday. But it's like this girl whose family is kind of, they're all kind of busy, and kind of she's having this jump roping event, and she puts these post-it notes for everyone to come, reminds him, has been reminding him for days, and nobody shows up. The father is kind of like this hippie guy who's a painter, kind of sleeping all day. The mother's a businesswoman. The brother is, just not really paying attention. No one's paying attention to her. So she ends up trying to talk to him at dinner, and there's no luck. So she ends up drugging the parents and knocking them out and then tying them up. And then her and the siblings basically try and have an intervention and try and get the family to change. And she has one day to do it when she's going to the finals of her jump roping thing that she's doing. And, it's all the kind of things that go on along the way. It kind of has a vibe of House Arrest. A little bit of a House Arrest vibe. But this is definitely one I would check out. I thought this was a really fun, kind of like that kind of a thing. The only thing that I thought was kind of weird was with what it was that was rated R. I thought it was just kind of weird because it didn't almost seem like, I didn't almost know why it was rated R. And the next one I got from New Video is the film starring Tim Heidecker from the Tim and Eric Show. The next one I got from New Video is the film The Comedy, which stars Tim Heidecker, who's from, the Tim and Eric Show on Comedy Central. Eric is in it as well, playing his friend. But this is a really kind of weird kind of movie to explain. The one guy who played the friend in it, I didn't even realize until I looked it up, was Neil Hamburger, the comedy guy, who I always loved because he used to always go on the Tom Green Show when he did the show from his house. I remember watching that when he just first started in the very beginning. I don't think he does it much anymore, but he looks so different when he does that character compared to this. But Tim Heidecker's character, his father, is in the hospital dying, and he's kind of, it's almost like a couple days in the life of it. He's kind of showing what he's doing and kind of screwing around with his friends. And he, like, does weird stuff. Like, he sees these guys that are gardening, and he just sort of starts to, like, hop in with them. And you don't really know if he's worked, if he really has anything to do with them. And then he kind of, you can tell he has a lot of money, but then he does, like, crazy odd jobs, and you don't really know why. Like, you can tell he's got some problems, and he's got a hard time dealing with his life. And there's, like, this weird stuff, too, with him, like, I don't know, it's just, like, all these weird things that are going on with him and his friends. I like this one, but it's like one of those kind of movies that try and explain this and put it into words. Because most of the movie, I think most of it was all improvised. From what I read, I think they wrote like 14 pages, and everything else was just kind of made up on the spot, improvised. But I thought it was an interesting movie, but it's very different, and I don't know if it's for everybody, but I like seeing, it really did show, though, that Tim Heidecker can do, like, these kind of, like, dramatic things like this. Like I said, for that, I think it was worth checking out. And the next one I got is the new Chris Seaver film, and I work with Chris Seaver on Geek Wars and Filthy McNasty. He makes really fun films, and I'll cover the one thing up on the cover. I don't think anyone's going to care, but people sometimes say weird stuff about the covers, but it's called Sex Squatch, and it's just covering up just in case anyone has, like, going, I didn't like seeing that. But it's about this ape that is basically, his plan is to rape and kill all these people. And that's just sort of his plan. It's a group of, like, people who are out at the cabin. And the thing is, it's hard to, like, to sum up his movies, but they're just so funny. This movie, had so many, like, really funny scenes. The guy who played the Sasquatch was really funny. I thought at first it might have been Chris Seaver, because, like, the voice, he was kind of doing a voice that I had heard him do. It was interesting, but I really, really thought this was just such a fun movie. Definitely would check this out. If you like crazy, over-the-top, weird stuff, definitely check out the trailer to it. I thought it was shot really, really nice. The guy who shot that was in one of my vlogs a long time ago called Clint, if anyone remembers the guy. And I remember, I think we said he was my cousin or something in the video, but it was just a really fun one. And the last one I got this at the Full Moon booth when I was at the Days of the Dead horror convention. And from what I've heard, maybe I'm saying this wrong, but I heard that they found mint boxes from the Wizard video line. They were like 80s boxes of horror movies, like VHS boxes, and they've basically put these boxes out, but with a new tape inside of the movie. This one is The Headless Eyes. But these are great big box, like the classic ones you would see when you went to, like, if you went to the video store in the 80s. Like, I remember, like, when I went to Blockbuster seeing these boxes, and they've got a whole line of these out. There's a whole bunch of ones coming out, too, but these are really, really cool. But anyway, though, thanks a lot for watching the new update, and, like I always say, definitely give the video a thumbs up if you like what I'm doing. Leave a comment below, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.